Good afternoon, Confetti. Hey, hello. Thanks, Dan. Love you too. Welcome to your session with Becky Hill and Alex Martin. They're going to be talking about their journey together as artist and manager. Come on, Denise. You all right, love? Obviously, Becky's worked with loads of great people, Sagala, David Guetta, to name but a few. And as you know, she just won the Brit Award for Best Dance Act. Something that I would struggle to do. If you're going to share pictures and things, tag a hashtag IW22 and tag Confetti in it, and you stand a chance of winning 50 quid. If there is a fire, make for the exit in a calm, orderly way. The room will get very hot and filled with smoke. Ignore that, just move fast. And then we are going to convene at the corner of Brook Street, to the right of the building, if we know where that is. A couple of bits of admin. If you are in your final year of an undergraduate course, the NTU employability team are offering careers appointments next week. Get booking. There are 50 tickets left for the Battle of the Bands. Get booking that. So you've all asked questions in advance. Are you taking a picture of me, Kim Mosley? You've all asked questions in advance. Hopefully there'll be time for us to ask questions afterwards. After we've listened to the interview, we'll be able to ask questions. And those people at home, obviously, feel free to type questions in your chat. Anyway, enough of me. I think we can all agree. Yeah, no. So enough of the winner of the Twit Award. Let's listen to the winner of the Brit Award. So, hey, we've got the lovely interviewer, Dean Jackson. We've got Becky's manager, Alex Martin. And of course, the one, the only, there'll never be another, Miss Becky Hill. Thank you very much.
Hello, good to see so many smiley faces. Let me introduce you. You don't need any introduction, but let's do it anyway. Alex Martin is the manager in question here.
Hello, yeah, I'm not Becky Hill, obviously.
And Becky Hill, who's not very well, so we're very grateful for being with us today, because she's not very well. So Becky, thanks for being here as well. Let's start with, how did you two meet?
Oh, Becky, how did we meet? I keep on looking over there, but you're actually over there, aren't you? You can see me through that camera.
Hi.
Right. Hello.
So where do we go? Where do we start here? When I was voted off The Voice, I was still in the studio building in Elstree in Borehamwood in London. And I just turned 18. I had no idea about the music industry, and I remember pulling Jessie J's manager to one side, because I think over the time I'd been on the show, we'd gotten really friendly with, and me generally, I talk to everybody like they're my best mate anyway, but I'd gotten quite friendly with Jessie's team. So her security guard, her tour manager, her manager, and when I got voted off, I bumped into her manager and I said, I don't know what to do next. And he brought me into this little room and spoke to me for 45 minutes, which I was super grateful for, because I was like, so what do I look for? Where do I go? What do I do? And he was like, you need a manager. Essentially, that's the first point, that's your first port of call. And I said, okay, well, I'd made about 3 contacts on The Voice. They'd introduced us to a management company called IE Management. The final 8 got introduced and we had a meeting together. Then there was 21st Artists that blanketed contractually everybody on The Voice. And the other person was Crown, because of Mark Hargreaves, who was head of Crown and Jessie J's manager. So I was like, do I look at statistics of, success rate? And he said the weirdest, at the time it was weird, it doesn't seem weird now, but he was like, Becky, you only go on your vibe and how you feel. And if you walk into a place and you don't feel right, that's not the place for you. And I thought, what kind of business is this? But it was so true. I went back home. I started working back as a barmaid at the weekends. And I had rang up all 3 management companies, went down to London on my own. I'm not from London. So it was very difficult finding out where everything was. And I went and had these 3 management companies, and I remember I think one of the guys I was talking to has sadly passed away now, but they looked after Robbie Williams. And it seemed like all they looked after was Robbie Williams. So I didn't feel quite right there. It was a little bit like Goldilocks and the 3 bears. It was like trying to go around finding the right porridge. So they were a bit too cold. And then I went over to 21st Artists, who said that they could essentially, I'll never forget this, they could essentially make me £100,000 in 6 months.
Ooh.
By going round as Becky Hill off The Voice. They had the best agents in the country, and they could ship me round every Oceania and club in the country, doing 2 songs from The Voice, 2 covers, for £2,000, and have a few selfies with people, and then off to the next club. And I was like, wow, £100,000, that would be nice from someone who has never had money in her life. And then my final meeting was with Crown, and that porridge was just right. And I remember ringing up Crown to try and have that meeting, and getting through to like having Mark, because Mark had given me his card and said, if you've got any questions, call me anytime. Turns out it wasn't his direct number. So I kind of got through to reception, and I said, I'm looking for a manager, my name's Becky, I'm off The Voice. And they put me through to Alex. Alex was the first person I spoke to. Alex arranged the meeting. Alex brought everybody from the company into that meeting. And I remember clear as day that they were like, Becky, if you make good music, good money will follow. And there hasn't been a truer word spoken to me as I sit in my 2-bedroom flat in London.
With your Brit Award in the background.
With a Brit Award in the background.
Yay!
By the way. So yeah, me and Alex clicked straight away. And I remember I didn't trust him for ages due to my trust issues around men in particular. And I remember we'd been working together for about 6 months, and I was going backwards and forwards to London, and Crown had very kindly given us some money so I could live down in London Monday to Friday, and then go home and see my family and friends at the weekend. And I lived with a woman that I met off The Voice and her 2 children, and I was in the arse end of London, sharing a bunk bed with her 15-year-old daughter for about 4 months while I was writing music. And then I had to move out because I'd started having arguments with a 3-year-old. And then I've never liked children. And then the money ran out. Crown basically said to Alex that he hadn't got me a record deal in that time, and that they didn't want to give any more money to somebody that was looking like she wasn't going to make any money. And I remember Alex took me to this like classic like lunch canteen restaurant where we had jam sponge and custard pudding, and basically told me that the money had run out. But not to worry because he was going to fund me out of his own pocket. And that was probably the first time that I went, that was the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me. Maybe I should start giving this guy a chance.
Wow.
So yeah, that was probably where it all kind of cemented in for me that it was a really good thing.
That's massive. Alex, when you met Becky then for the first time, and let's be honest, from The Voice, there isn't a great track record of selling lots of records, is there, from The Voice? So what was it that you saw in Becky that you really liked and knew you wanted to work with her?
Well, we have to remember this was season 1 of The Voice, so
Right, okay.
it didn't have any track record at that point, but it was a big show. And in this bizarre sliding doors moment, I'm not sure whether we've ever discussed this, Becky, actually, really, but I was sat at home on a Saturday night. I was actually poorly that night as well, and I I flicked on the TV and saw Becky performing on TV, and I just loved that voice. I just thought it was incredible, and I was looking for someone to manage at that point. I had a roster of artists I was managing, but I was looking for a very specific thing. I've always been a fan of identifiable, strong female vocals and strong independent women to work with as well. And it was an incredible moment when I was passing reception one day off for my lunch, and the receptionist said, "Oh, Alex, there's Becky Hill on the phone. Who shall I put her through to?" And at the top of my list that day, and this is complete bizarre serendipity, the top of my list that day was to call Becky Hill. It said in big capital letters on my notepad. And it just so happened as I was passing reception, she was on the phone. And so I spoke to her, we arranged the meeting, and as Becky said, it was all set up. And I was definitely going through my my hippie days then. I don't think I was wearing shoes in the meeting. I had long hair. God knows what I looked like. So Becky, I don't know how on earth you ended up choosing me to work with, but it was just clear we had a bond straight away, and one that still persists even stronger to this day. I think it's 11 years on now. So yeah, bizarre serendipity moment, but it was really the vocal for me that did it, because I didn't really have anything else to go on. I'd never met her before. We obviously met in the meeting, but I just loved her voice straight away.
And the advice that Becky had been given about not looking at statistics but going for a connection, is that advice that you would endorse for artists looking for managers in the future?
I mean, to a degree, I think track record is important to look at, but I think the one thing that I've taken away from my time working with Becky is when you believe in something, you really do believe in it, you go for it. And I remember at the time I read a quote from someone saying, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And then the quote was that actually, if you do put all your eggs in one basket, you make sure you don't bloody drop the basket. So, and that was kind of important to me to take with Becky, actually. It was I know there is someone here who is incredibly talented. I really like her. That's really important to me. I can't work with people I don't like, and I'm sure Becky is the same. And both of those two things, I just felt a connection with her creatively in terms of her voice and what I felt she was able to do. She was able to write songs. I heard some of those early demos and really liked what she was doing. And I liked her as a person. Those were really the two most important things.
Now, at the Brit Awards a few weeks ago, there was what I think is a unique moment, because Becky, during your acceptance speech, you brought Alex up on stage. In fact, let's have a look at the Brit Award clip, can we please?
And the winner is, for the award for the dance act, wow, Becky here!
I just want to say, this was fan voted for, and in the 2 weeks that people could vote for, I have never been so heartwarmed. I don't even know if that's a word, but so touched by all of my fans who just wanted to see me do well and support me. Thank you so much for making this a possibility for me. I love dance music. I have been a little drum and bass raver since I was 12 years old. Tonight, I need to thank my manager, Alex, who's over here, who funded me when I was 18, just off The Voice. I had no money, who saw me through getting dropped from a record deal, started my own record deal, and signed again to the amazing Polydor. I want to say thank you to you guys, because you've been amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to go have it large.
It's got to be one of the best received speeches in the history of the Brits, that. And I think what was clear was you meant every syllable of every word, Becky.
Yeah, I mean, some words didn't actually exist before that. So that was interesting. Yeah, I I had a bit of an argument with Alex as well about whether we were. I was like, I think he thought I was joking when I said, "You're coming up with me, by the way. If we win, you're coming up with me." And then the kind of next day, I was like, I wasn't joking about what I said yesterday, and he was like, "No, this is totally your moment. This is totally your moment." And I was like, "Alex, this is totally our moment." And then there was a little bit where David had said my name, and I just was stood there for about 15 seconds having to like convince Alex to go up with me, otherwise I wasn't going up. So I think out of must rather than want, Alex kind of came up with me. But yeah, it was a really good moment for both of us.
Alex, why didn't you want to go up?
Well, I didn't.
No, I know you didn't want to. Why didn't you want to?
Oh, why didn't I want to?
Yeah.
Right. This kind of moment right here is quite bizarre because it's normally Becky in front of the cameras. Well, she is in front of a camera, but I'm normally lurking in the shadows and very happy to do so, frankly. But it was about Becky's moment. You know, I've always been a long-standing thought in my head, which is it's incredibly difficult being an artist, and I don't think people really understand that actually what it is to be an artist, especially at the coalface of the pop music industry. And that moment for Becky, for her to go up there and receive that, especially on her own, why I didn't want to, was because it was vindication for incredible persistence and real vindication of her talent of 10 years worth of graft to get to that stage. And she's had incredible success. She's had #1 records. She's had top 10 albums. She's billions and billions of streams, millions and millions of sales. But you know what, that for me, why I didn't want to go up was because it was all about her. But Becky, when I sat back down with Becky afterwards, after a very long press call, and we sat back down at the table, I just said to her, you know what, before we have a few drinks, I just want to say thank you for bringing me up. I don't think any manager has graced the stage of the Brits before, but I just said to her, true class, Becky, it just shows the absolute measure of the person that you are, that in the greatest moment to date of your career, you would choose to bring me up alongside you. And so when I sat down for lunch with Becky last Friday, we were chatting about her album too, and I joked with her. I said, "Oh, how many times have you watched that Brit speech on YouTube today?" And she said, quite rightly, probably not as many as you have, Alex. And it's absolutely true. I've watched it probably about twice a day, every day, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And you know, I just couldn't be more delighted for Becky.
Brilliant. I want to know the traits of a good manager, and I was going to ask you, Alex, but actually, Becky, it's probably best that I ask you. What are the qualities of a good manager?
Well, I was going to follow up what Alex said with what I've noticed is that artists are absolutely nothing without the team around them, and I think, you know, it's really important that it was really important for me that night to have Alex, who stood by me for 10 years, recognised in that instance. You know, I remember getting dropped when I was 19 or 20, I think I was, and him calling me in. It was right before Christmas as well, and I was going through quite a lot of personal stuff anyway, and I remember he called me in and he told me that Parlophone Records were dropping me, and that they were no longer going to be putting out any more records of mine, and I was devastated. I had to take myself off to the office, like to the toilets, to have a cry, and then kind of come back, and he was like, "Yeah, but don't worry, I'm not going to leave you." And I thought, you thought about leaving me? you actually thought about leaving me?
I didn't.
It's someone trying to be, that's a little insight into my trust issues there. But I think, you know, it's one thing has been commitment, and I think it's really, I've heard so many horror stories about managers, and trust me, like when you start getting into the music industry, you'll start hearing more and more about managers that take the piss. And I think it's really no real care for their artists. There's a lot of people that wanted to be artists before becoming managers and kind of living through their artists in a weird way, spending the artists' money on things that don't relate to work. I've heard of all sorts of stuff like that. The Kate Nash documentary on BBC on iPlayer is a really good documentary to watch about a really awful manager who kind of loves the smell of his own shit and then spends all her money on his wedding. Safe to say I was at Alex's wedding, so I knew where all that money was going. But I think with Alex, it's been from my point of view, it's kind of been Alex has had faith in me when I haven't had faith in myself. And even though it's been in there somewhere, and Alex is right, like it's being an artist is intense, and you have to have a lot of faith in what you do and how you do it, even when nobody is picking up and telling you that you're good. And even if they do tell you that you're good, there's a whole wider audience there that you have to impress. And like that takes a lot of self-belief. Like you have to really believe that you are really good all the time. And that wasn't available to me for most part of my career. And I think it was really Alex who pushed me and believed in me and told me that what we were doing, almost blindsided faith. Like it's been, no, this is going to work. One day this will work. It's not working right now, but it will work. And I think, you know, I'm a big believer that in like putting stuff out into manifesting stuff and putting stuff out into the universe. And I think Alex has done so much of that you know, it's kind of worked for both of us. So I definitely think you will. I tell you what, the management-artist relationship is a lot like a normal relationship that you would experience in real life, except without the other bits. It's like it's a really close, intense relationship where, you know, you will know if somebody isn't into you by the way they act, by them not replying to your text messages or, in this case, emails. And, you know, and like my diary was full before I could even say, I'm going to the dentist on Monday. Like, this is what I loved about Alex, is that I was hungry to work, and so was Alex. He was an underdog, I was an underdog, and we both just went for it. And that feeling thing was really important, because like you'll know when somebody is into what you do and wants to make something with you.
Wow. So Alex, how much of what you do, clearly your role is to look after Becky and so on, but how much of it do you act as a buffer from the industry? Because there's a lot of tedium, there's a lot of statistics and industry and business going on, isn't there? So do you act as a buffer between all of that and Becky?
Do you mean a buffer between the information and data, or a buffer generally?
Just, I guess, there are certain things that an artist needs to know, aren't there? And there's certain things that I guess they don't need to know, really. So do you filter stuff and think, okay, this is what Becky needs to know, she doesn't need to know that bit? Not
really, actually. I mean, there are elements of that, because, you know, Becky's only got enough bandwidth as anyone has to compute a certain amount. And actually, you know, as much as Becky is intrinsically involved in the business side of things, there is complete transparency between Becky and I. Always has been, always will be. And I think that is an absolute core foundation of our relationship. You know, trust-wise, I trust her, she trusts me now. And that is a really, really important element of our relationship. So when there are difficult conversations to be had, that's part of my role. You know, that I don't like it, because I wish we could have amazing lunches like we did last Friday every week, every day, whatever. But, you know, I'm there to deliver the great news. I'm there to deliver the crap news as well. And, you know, there was a moment last 2 years ago where I had to deliver that in quick succession, actually. There was great news. Becky, your single Better Off Without You has been nominated for a Brit Award. Amazing. Everyone's delighted. Everyone was going crazy. And then 24 hours later, I had to told her that the BPI had miscalculated and she had missed out by about 1,000 sales. So, and that would have been her debut Brit nomination. And, you know, that kind of moment of elation when you deliver that great news, and then also the moments where you have to deliver the really crap news as well. You know, similarly when Parlophone decided that we were going to be parting ways, you know. So I don't find it productive to hide information at all, frankly, because what I do choose to do is choose which information I think Becky needs to hear at certain points, because there's only so much bandwidth that she understandably can hold, as any individual can. You know, Becky is the creative in the relationship here. She's got to get on writing a second album at the moment. She's out performing on stage. She doesn't need to be bogged down with the mitochondria of the detail and some of the other politics that I can resolve and then, you know, discuss with her at a later date or slightly later. So it's a bit of a mix, but no, there's complete transparency, and I always end up telling her anyway. I think it's been useful for her to know all along, because it allows her to frame the relationships that are important to us collectively that run the business.
Do you think you're inside Becky's head when it comes to sort of working on a team to put a video together, for example? Do you know which people Becky's going to like, and does that play a role in choosing who works on that project?
To a degree, you know, after 10 years, 11 years of working with someone, you'd hope that you kind of know them pretty well. And what I've really enjoyed is seeing how Becky and my relationship has evolved over the years. It has changed, really, actually, over the years from what it was. It's still incredibly positive, more positive than it's ever been. But, you know, I just know her better now, actually. And frankly, I'm more respectful, I think, now, and understanding and empathetic to what she wants and who she is as a person. And I think that's a huge element of being able to evolve personally and as a manager as well. That's been very important to me. But in terms of videos, yeah, you know, it's about Becky and I at the centre making those decisions together and appointing a variety of people, record label, publisher, booking agent, merch company, etc. You know, all the different aspects of her career, to bring those people to us and then decide. But ultimately, the creative control rests with Becky, as it should. And then, you know, she very gratefully and graciously, graciously brings me into those conversations sometimes as well. But yeah, you know, it's about a team building a team around Becky that she is comfortable, who can realise that creative vision.
Yeah, I also don't think that is usual either. I don't think the way me and Alex work has historically been how a lot of managers have interacted with their artists. And I think the stereotype, for wanting of a better word, of like the manager-artist relationship is that the manager does all the kind of all of this stuff and the chatting with the other businessmen, and the little artist gets on with singing the songs and doing what they're told. And I think, you know, I definitely felt that when I came into the industry, not with Alex, but I noticed it with the managers that I'd met, kind of outside of that stuff. And I think, you know, as I mentioned before, that I've needed to know every aspect of everything, else I have a tendency to have a complete meltdown. And I mean that in the sense that I think my mom's always thought that I'm on the spectrum somewhere. So I have that thing where I need to know every part of my business. I also need to know what Alex's relationship with other business people is, because when we're out together, I want to be seen as a team with him. You know, if he's had some bad email correspondence with somebody else, I'll get pissed off for him. And he has to go, no, it's fine. But I then know how Alex is interacting with other people, how that flow of stuff is going. Because also a lot of the time, shit will get back to me as well. And then I have to go to Alex and go, well, why are they saying that? And then get the other side of the story. And I think, and even with deal terms, this was something that Alex really made me very conscious of from a very early age, was like contracts, record deals, like have your own lawyer, who I actually met off The Voice and called up before I rang Alex to confirm having him as my manager. Sit with your own lawyer, sit with him without me there, go through every part of the deal that get that person to explain what parts are where, your sunset clauses in your management deals, your tour support in your record deals, find out how much they're taking from the digital side of stuff. And I know music business very well now, but not because I studied it, because I learned on the job, and that was something that Alex always made very clear that I do. But I think a lot of managers, or historically a lot of managers, keep a lot more information away from their artists because it's the done thing, and artists aren't kind of involved in that sort of stuff. Every artist is different, and I think that's a very important point to make, is that I've been an artist that has more or less known where I want to get to, and I've known that sort of information and how I want that to look like and how I want that to be through conversations I've had with Alex. Me and Alex have been very creative together on where we want to take the project and end up and how we look. A lot of artists don't know that sort of stuff. A lot of artists don't want to know about their contracts. A lot of artists, so every relationship is different. The way this one has ran has been complete, crystal clear transparency.
Interesting. And the team that you choose, going back to this team thing, I'm going to mention a name, Michael Hollick, who's from Nottingham, a good friend of mine actually, and I know from looking at your Twitter feed, Becky, you quite rate him, don't you?
We have done 4 music videos together, about to be 6th actually soon. We've got 2 more. We've got 2 more videos coming up together. Absolutely love him. I love that he was my age. I love how creative and scatty he is, just like me, but totally focused and like knowing of what he wants to do. And he's like the music, video version of kind of me, I suppose, and I think that's why we get on very well. And he loves his drum and bass, which always helps.
He does. And he's potty-mouthed as well, isn't he?
Just as much as I am.
So when you find someone that you work with that connects with Becky in that way, is that an important part in considering who you work with in the future, Alex?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I'm not sure I'll ever find someone again like Becky, or certainly the relationship that we have. And, touching on what Becky was explaining just then about the relationship dynamic between artist and manager. Becky was saying very nice things about how, how much I've kind of have enabled her to understand about the industry. Becky's made me a better manager. That's the bottom line. The type of person that she is. And I think about this regularly. She has infinitely made me a better manager and a better person as well, actually, generally. And, I'm very aware of this becoming a sycophantic, backslapping kind of chat. But, I have absolutely no qualms in saying that at all. She has. She's made me better at my job, and she's made me nicer and better as a person.
I think the team thing as well, I think the team stuff really comes into play when you're talking about writing music. Writing music for me is a really personal thing. Me and Alex share the fact that we're both control freaks, self-confessed control freaks. And I think when you're talking about Alex knowing who to put me in with in terms of music videos. So music videos is an interesting one because I find them hell on earth. And this is something I've gotten better at, but I find them very difficult because a lot of the time I have really felt uncomfortable with my self-image. I felt really uncomfortable with putting myself out in a visual way online, because I'm scared that people are going to, I suppose, make fun of me. A lot of my childhood issues kind of come into play when you are so barefaced on camera, and I know a lot of other artists love it. I don't enjoy peacocking in that way. My thing is stepping out on stage and singing my ass off for an hour. That's what I love. I don't really enjoy the side bit. So when I first met Michael, when we were doing Sunrise in the East, I remember sitting him down and going, I fucking hate music videos, and I fucking hate anybody that films them, and not in a personal way.
It's a good introduction.
Yeah. And I hate it, and you need to know that I hate it, because this is probably potentially going to be a little bit painful for you.
Right.
I remember when we shot I Could Get Used to This in New York, and the first scene was, his warm-up scene was in a hotel performing against the window, and I couldn't do it, and I got up and went and cried in the toilets. And me and Michael were actually talking on the Run video shoot in Cape Town, because he was like, wow, that's crazy how different you are now. And I was like, Michael, look what we're doing. Like, we've got a really big budget for this video. Like, I wouldn't have asked for that big budget if I didn't think that I could perform properly. Like, I feel like I'm becoming a different person now, because I'm 28, and like, nobody really tells you, but like, oh my God, a lot of that anxiety lifts off that you feel in your early 20s. My God, that kind of really dissipates. Although not today, because I am feeling very anxious today. But anyway, Michael really understood, and because I was crystal clear from that first meeting we had of going, I don't know whether you're going to enjoy this, I'm definitely not going to enjoy this, but here it is. And like, Michael now knows. You know, writing music is very similar, because when I was 18, Alex was like, you know, you want to write music, we don't know what kind of music you want to write, so let's put you in with everybody and anybody. And there I went off into writing sessions with all sorts of people. And, you know, it's nothing personal, really, even though it is quite personal, but you like people and you don't like people. So now when me and Alex are talking about writing a second album, we're talking about who we want to write it with, and I'm like, he gives me a list of names, and I'm like, yeah, love that person, yeah, no, don't want to go in session with them. Don't want to write a song with them again, don't want to do that. And that's where it becomes very useful for Alex to know me the way that he does, because he's not forcing me. There's a specific writer in question that the label really wanted me to go in with, and on paper is a really good person for me to go in with. But because the relationship started quite rocky and I felt pushed in the corner with it, Alex knew straight away that it wasn't going to work, so we never did it. Even though I probably on paper should have done. But yeah, it's stuff like that that is really good. I am waffling, I'm sorry, but
it's good.
It's stuff like that that is really good for Alex to know me as an artist.
So as we head towards album number 2, looking at Only Honest at the Weekend, looking at that album, what have you learnt about the way that you worked with Becky with that first album that you might change for the second one as a manager?
Oh, wow. Big question. Well, perversely, Only Honest on the Weekend was Becky's debut album, but you know, this will be in a pub quiz somewhere many years down the line. The only artist ever to release a greatest hits album before their debut album is Becky Hill, actually, because she had Get to Know out, which was really a bit of a marketing exercise, and has gone on to do hundreds and thousands of sales alone. But in terms of Only Honest on the Weekend, that was written over a 10-year period. We were picking and choosing songs from that period, and that was interesting to try and get that bind. And Becky's vocal is the bind, really, but that and the kind of production elements in terms of that dance pop sound, that is also the bind. But there was no exec producer who sat across it all, and so it's a collage of the last 10 years. I think that's, from my point of view, how I see it. And
But hangs together very well.
hangs together beautifully.
Yeah.
The general feeling, and Becky will be able to really touch on this better, but from my perspective, when you're writing a second album in a lot closer time period, really, you know, we're looking at having it done within a year, there will be a musical bind there, which is probably closer. You're probably working with a smaller group of people. And certainly the plans we're putting in place as to it'll be engineered in a different way, actually, as to how the first album was, you know, unless I have to wait another 10 years for the second album, which I hope I don't.
No, you definitely won't. Also, one thing that I was thinking of as well, coming back to the team idea as well, I think one thing about putting a team around an artist is, one thing that me and Alex have definitely learned is that our kind of management team has been a really important dynamic, as well as a label team. Like, one thing that I kind of wish I'd known when I was a teenager going into a record deal was that you can very quickly sour the attitude at a record label super quick, like by saying no to certain stuff, or, you know, not agreeing with their creative vision, or, you know, stuff like that.
Is that what happened at Parlophone? Is that what you're saying?
This is what happened at Parlophone. One thing that I haven't really put two and two together until this very moment, but I was asked to do a Guetta record.
So you asked to?
I was asked to do a David Guetta record.
Okay, yeah.
And it was written by Sia, and it was called Bang Your Head. And I hope David doesn't mind me saying this, but I thought it was shit. And I was really pressurised to do it because I was a new artist. You know, I just don't Afterglow and maybe Overdrive, and the label desperately wanted me to do this David Guetta record. Oh, it's going to give you masses of exposure, this, that, and the other. The tune was a flop, but in the flop of David Guetta, like it was probably millions and millions of streams and stuff. But I didn't want to do it, and I put my foot down and said, I really, really don't want to do this. And I was getting a call from the head of the label, Miles Leonard at the time, and he was going, you know, and I was like, Miles, I don't like it. I'm sorry, but I don't like it, and I don't want to sing it. And actually, let's get in the studio with David. And he was like, well, that's not going to happen because you're not doing this. Anyway, fast forward 8 years, here I am with David Guetta on my record. You know, and I sit here and wonder sometimes if I'd have done that Bang Your Head record and it had been a flop, and, you know, Guetta had seen me doing that, would he have then come back and done another tune with me? So that was really weird, because like that relationship with Parlophone wasn't a great one because I didn't know how to be a businesswoman. My relationship with Polydor now is beautiful, actually. It's an incredible example of what an artist-label relationship can and should be like. Me and Alex essentially spoon-feed the label with what we're going to do, and they essentially implement our plan, rather than having our plan dictated by a label. Also, another thing a revelation I had is that, because when I got dropped, me and Alex started our own record label, Echo Records. And I'd put all of the money that I'd gotten from my first record deal into all of this label and the music that we were creating and the videos we were shooting. We did it all ourselves, and it was incredible. Probably the best time in my career to date. I had the most amount of fun, and like from deciding we wanted to put out a record to releasing a record was probably around 4 to 6 weeks, which does seem like a long time, but when you get with a record label, holy cow, the people take a long time. And this is the thing, there's so many more people in a record label. You'd have thought things would have gone quicker, but there's just more people you have to kind of be nice to, in a sense that, you know, you have to stimulate people to do their jobs. And I know that that's what Alex does for most part of his job now, is to like get other people to do their jobs. Another part of the team thing is, I've got to mention that, is Amanda, who is essentially taking the role of day-to-day manager. Now, Alex is kind of like me and Alex have gotten to the point now where we've needed to bring somebody else on. Now, it was always very important for me to have a woman involved in our relationship, especially somebody that's going to follow me around a lot. Alex has 2 children and has a lot of emails to answer and phone calls to make, and can't be coming to, I don't know, CWC Crackerjack to film me pushing a shopping trolley into a wall of toilet rolls. This is the kind of
Did you do that?
stuff you have to do as an artist.
You actually did that, did you?
I actually did that. And I got the most toilet rolls in. I think I actually got the golden toilet roll into my shopping trolley.
I missed that, I'm sorry.
It's fine. I've got it actually on my Instagram bio now. Winner of the golden toilet roll. So it's like menial stuff like that, which actually is a really big deal because you have to go up to Manchester, you have to get hair and makeup, you have to get styling, and then you have to go and do the whole programme. And you know, Amanda has been intrinsic to my team, our team. You know, she started off and still is my tour manager. Because it was really important for me to have a female tour manager, somebody that people won't fuck with either. I think that was really important. And somebody that you wouldn't necessarily see in that role. The majority of the tour managers are men. And she came in and absolutely smashed the arse off tour managing. She was wicked, everyone fell in love with her. And suddenly I wanted her around me all the time to help me out with everything I do. And that was really important. And Alex also saw how important that was to me, and we brought her on as a kind of full-time role. So in terms of teams, it's very important.
So was there a conversation about bringing Amanda on board then with you, Alex? Did you know the person that you wanted, or did you go out and find the right person to work with Becky?
Well, it was about the right fit with Becky, really. And there was a great relationship there I could see from the tour managing aspect of it. And then obviously when the pandemic hit in and live started decreasing significantly, there was a great conversation and opportunity to be had with Amanda, who is watching. Hello, Amanda. And she's just done a phenomenal job and been a pleasure to work with, and there's a really good working relationship between the 3 of us.
You and Amanda are going to be really busy, aren't you? Because you've got so many festival dates over the summer. I mean, you're coming to Nottingham to play Splendour in July, but looking at your tour guide, there's so much going on.
Yeah. Just how I like it. Especially with festivals. I mean, say to anybody, anywhere, do you want to go to a festival? You don't have to camp and you don't have to wash yourself with baby wipes. You get paid and you get to sing your own songs, and then you get to leave in a nice van and get back to your own bed, and then tomorrow you get to go to another one. And then the next day you get to go abroad, and then you get to go to that festival, and then it's just, festival season is my favourite time of year, mainly because like everybody's just out having fun. And it's so nice to kind of go around the festival, soak up the atmosphere, in what I like to call my Clark Kent uniform, which is basically me with no makeup on and jeans and t-shirt, and then go backstage and put on my Superman outfit, which is usually knee-high boots, some tiny little shorts, and a full face of makeup, and go out and pretend I'm this mad singer who can write all these songs, which turned out to actually be me. So I love festival season massively. I love it so much, and I'm really looking forward to it this year.
Well, we can't wait to see you in Nottingham in a few months' time. It all looks enormous fun, all of this. I mean, it just looks great. I mean, you are both living the dream as far as I can see. I mean, do you ever have sit-down meetings, a planning meeting or something, you know, like they might have in a corporate setting, or do you just do stuff as mates over a coffee?
Well, I work from home a lot because I have 2 young kids, so it's never really in an office. It used to be, but not really at the moment. But you know, I was having lunch with Becky last Friday, and you know, there's this plan for the next 2 years that I've got written down, and it's in my head, and haven't actually had an opportunity to sit down properly with Becky and talk through it from start to finish. But you know, obviously we talk through elements of it, and she knows it all anyway. But in terms of, it's mostly for me to impart to Becky that there is a plan for her career, you know, in the next year, 2 years, 5 years, etc. There are those ambitions of where we want to get to, etc. And that's really important. I just want to touch on one thing Becky was saying about the golden toilet roll, not really to just go too much into golden toilet rolls, but you know what I found incredible actually is the amount of young fans Becky has. And so all of those painful trips up to Manchester at 5 a.m. to do CBBC, you know, and whilst other artists are doing Graham Norton, for example, and just those little bits as you chip away in an artist's career has just been so critical, because the audience now we find is incredibly widespread, you know, for Becky, and we get a lot of young fans, and they don't come to Becky's music from scrolling through Spotify. They see it on CBBC and all those really, really small and painful promo bits. And again, it goes down to people not really understanding, I don't think, what it really is to be a musician and a pop star in this day and age, and the amount of graft you really have to put in to get to the level of where Becky is and where we're heading next as well. I don't think people really understand the not so glamorous side of the job. You know, the getting up at 4 a.m. and going into hair and makeup when you've been to bed at midnight on a video shoot. It may be in Cape Town. Cape Town's beautiful, of course it is. But who wants to go to bed at midnight and get up at 4 a.m. and go straight into hair and makeup and then shoot for another 12 hours and then do exactly the same thing the next day and then get home and go straight into the studio and then not have a weekend where you can go home because you have to go up to CBBC one day and then you have to do a full 12-hour day of promo from people all around the world, and then you have to do the real nitty-gritty stuff as well. It's not a particularly glamorous lifestyle sometimes, and you really have to graft to be successful, and that is why I will always have a huge amount of respect for Becky, and that is why our relationship has also endured. Her grafting has been absolutely incredible, impeccable, really, exemplary, because she has known when to really put the graft in, and it pays off. Not all the time, but it has in this situation.
And a lot of the times we've had people say no.
Yeah.
Like, so the thing is, yes, it kind of looks all fun and games now, you know, but who wants to be fucking on CBBC pushing a shopping trolley into a stack of toilet rolls when you're trying to promote your single? Like, you know, I'm 28, and now I'm being asked to, like, jump around miming the lyrics to my own record for TikTok, you know, and there's so much pressure to put yourself out online now. And if you don't enjoy that, that's painful. You know, the fact that for years and years people were convinced. I posted it on my Twitter actually, I read an article written by another songwriter where she was talking about working with me and said, you know what, it's really good for Becky, because I think for a lot of years, a lot of people thought it was over for her. And it was like, I'd never read that before. Like, I'd never seen it in black and white where, you know, people thought I was just some fucking feature artist. You know, that I was just kind of some girl off The Voice who was never gonna, you know, become an artist in her own right. And for years, me and Alex felt that. And, you know, that was really, really difficult. And Alex is right, like, there's also a different side to this where you have to sort out your own mental health. And what I mean by that is that I wake up every day feeling so unbelievably lucky to be doing what I do and to be able to sing. And I don't know where it comes from or how I do it, but it happens. And I love it. And I feel eternally grateful for that, because I grew up watching both of my parents hate their job and have arguments with each other because they hated their job and they were just trying to get money to support their 5 children that they had together. So from my point of view, in that side, I feel incredibly lucky. When I wake up and I don't want to do something, or, you know, I'm anxious about doing something, or I don't feel good enough to do something, that rests on my mind so heavily, because you don't feel like you can't enjoy travelling up to Manchester at 5 a.m. to push a shopping trolley into a load of toilet rolls. Like, you know, there's a lot of people cleaning toilets for a job and making money that way, and yet, you know, what, you're a poor pop star going and do that. You have to allow yourself to feel gratitude and like misery all at the same time. Like, it's a really weird balance of like having to feel lucky but also recognize that actually going and doing 15 interviews on Zoom with people around the world and saying literally the same thing over and over again, you know, can get a little bit tedious, and that is okay too. You know, that's probably the other hard side of stuff as well, is like the diary is so packed. Like, I'm somewhere else every weekend for 4 months, sometimes multiple places, sometimes getting on a plane, and now there's something that I can't say, but we're announcing soon, that means for 6 dates across 8 weeks, on Tuesday I'm going to have to be abroad as well, and then come back, unpack, repack, go to a festival, then go to another festival, and then fly back to wherever I'm needing to be.
Wow.
And then do that. You know, incredible, amazing, and I'm really looking forward to it, but at some point I know I'm going to have to break down and have a cry about it.
I mean, we touch on mental health there, and it is really important. We've got a room full of people here, many of whom are involved, well, all of them are involved in music in one way or another. And what have you learnt, both of you actually, what have you learnt about being resilient in this industry that does have tough moments, doesn't it?
Alex has been incredible, firstly, and I think Alex is right when he says that he's grown a lot softer over the years. I think when we first met, and our relationship has changed, I think when we first met, it was very like parent-child relationship, and then there was a switch where it became like adults. Like, we became like adults interacting with each other, and I think both of us found that a little difficult to navigate because we've never really been there before. And I think one thing that Alex has always prided himself on has been mental health has always got to come first. And there should never be a forcing somebody. You can like tell that person how important that thing that you don't want to do is, and you know, if you did just like grin and bear it for a bit, it would like do a lot for your career. There's that side of things. But if it's a case of panic attacks and you know, hyperventilation and stuff, nothing is ever worth that. Like, no job is ever worth your mental health. Like, and Alex has always checked in, more so now as well. Like, things are getting really scary right now. Like, things are really heating up, and like Alex will always check in. And I think one thing that I've really felt more comfortable doing now more than ever is going, so we're going to be flying to Ibiza here. We've got 3 days off before I've got to fly to Lithuania and do a festival. Can I have these 3 days off and recoup for a little bit? For example, I'm playing Snowbox this month, and I got a week before it, I'm having a ski holiday. It's where I met my fiance. Then I do the gig. Then the next morning I fly to Dubai for a day, and then I fly to Ireland and do Dancing with the Stars, and then the next day I do a day full of promo in Ireland, and then I said, can I have 2 days off after that, just so I can recoup, because then I've got a gig the next day after that. So it's kind of like, Alex has always been incredible with checking in and making sure that that I'm not having a breakdown, which I have had quite a lot of.
Do you keep the diary then, Alex? Do you keep an eye on the diary to make sure there is time blocked out for Becky to recoup?
Yeah, I think it's different for different artists, but I think the mental health aspect for any artist, and as Becky was saying, in any job is important. And you know, it all sounds rather glamorous, having to fly from Snowbox to Dubai and Dancing with the Stars and all that. But I think it's just awareness and having empathy that that can be incredibly hard work, actually, especially when you're in front of the camera all the time. And going back to one of the first questions you asked, why didn't I want to get on that stage? It was because I'm happy to be in the shadows and et cetera and do my job there. But there has to be that understanding that being in front of everybody, put yourself in those shoes, and you begin to understand how difficult that can be, especially for mental health. And something I'm discussing with the label at the moment is the incredible pressure on artists to be delivering content for social media on a consistent basis, which has now formed an absolutely critical part of an artist release plan. What that pressure has on artists in this day and age, it's never been more prevalent. Way back in the day, it used to be about doing a lot of promo for sure and shooting a music video maybe. But then, apart from a few TV appearances, there may not have been as much to do. But nowadays, it is just relentless. It is about making sure we have an absolutely packed social media strategy and diary for the week, which of course involves getting copy and content from Becky, and that's across multiple platforms. Instagram stories, main grid, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube Shorts. And that's only a microcosm of what we have to deliver per campaign. And so the reason why I mention that is because obviously of the mental health aspect, that would drain anyone, frankly. And I think you just have to be really empathetic in terms of to understand what impact that can have on somebody.
It's not just the drain of producing the content, is it? There's the almost obsession with statistics and getting more likes with this video than the previous one. I think I'm aware, I see and hear people talking a lot about posting videos and them not doing quite as well as the previous one, and that can be draining content. Do you manage to avoid that now you're established?
I mean, no, not really.
Go ahead, Becky.
Well, one thing that I was thinking about when Alex was talking as well, one thing that is also really pressurised in this situation is somebody fucks up in the label, on your project, they get to go home and sleep quite well at night, but they fuck up on your project. It's not like everybody goes on to Twitter and goes, oh God, that song that you put out that was at 115 BPM and now you've taken it off and sped it up to 124 BPM, and which has happened. That was a fuck up of the labels, but it was my fuck up.
You took the rap for it.
And you take the rap for everybody's mistakes as an artist, because nobody's going to be blaming the label.
In the fans' eyes, do you mean here? Yeah.
Yeah. In the public perception.
Yeah.
If you're a public figure, if somebody fucks up behind you, you're the person. Equally, what I was saying earlier, with the reason why I brought Alex on stage is because, he does good stuff. It makes me look good. We all work together in this. But the content is something that me and Alex are dealing with right now. And this was a day, it was Friday, and a content day was set up, and I turned up with my right hand Amanda and my photographer Jen, and I got there in a really bad mood because I knew I was having to do this content. I had a bag full of clothes to change into, to do different videos, I had my makeup with me, and I got there and I went, I don't want to do this, and I'm going to get a cab home now. And nothing against you guys, I don't want to do it. And, then the label started ringing us, and then, my photographer took it personally, and it became a thing. And also, more to the point, it made me question my own value. It made me really question whether I could do this and whether I could be an artist, and and that's what it takes to be an artist. And more content grows more numbers, and people are more aware of you, and all of this stuff is kind of thrown at you, and you're like, yeah, I know, I just don't want to do it, and I don't know how I can do it, and I don't know how I can make myself feel better doing it, because there's also not any support out there, because it's all so new. There's no real support for people to become better at content. If you're good at it, well done. If you're shit at it, you have no chance. And it's really sad, you know. It's, and another thing, like your point about like videos being higher grossing than other videos, that's another thing. I know if I get my tits out on Instagram, if I put a picture of me in a bikini or in my underwear, I will get a shit ton of likes. If I put in a video of me singing my new song a cappella, no one gives a flying shit. And that is a really difficult point to be in as well. Like, you know, to know that people only really want to consume you if you are consumable for the way they want to be consumed. Like, that's a really, and another thing is, like, you spend ages doing these videos. You spend ages, like, finding the right spot to sing a song, or, you know, dance around like a dickhead to your own track, and putting it all together onto TikTok and making this whole thing. And, like, when you only get 2,500 likes, when you've got 300,000 followers, it's like, this is less than 10% of people. This is less than 5% of people engaging with the shit that you spent ages trying to make. So actually, what is the point? But obviously there's a really big point. You know, I'm a millennial, I'm not Gen Z, and, you know, I remember when Facebook was created. You know, I sound like a grandma, but, like, I was never a YouTube kid when YouTube kids were a thing, and I find it very difficult now. Rant over.
Oh, no, that's absolutely fascinating. So in this situation then, when Becky decided she didn't want to do the shoot that day, do you, Alex, then have to talk to the label and smooth things over?
Well, to a degree there's an element of that, but I think it's about everyone understanding the common goal, but also understanding that an artist's mental health will come first, and the campaign may suffer because certain elements aren't delivered, but there's a bigger picture here, actually. And I think it just, again, goes down to that empathy. I know Becky knows how important certain things are to do. She knows it herself, but that is completely trumped by someone who just can't do it that day. And it takes a cruel person to be able to either force them to do it or try and force them to do it. And, you know, the reason why we're going over this in such detail is because there are really no kind of rules and boundaries on social media, or there is no rule book as to how to do things. And it's just more. And that can be very, very draining. And it's something that is being worked through at the highest levels at record labels and beyond at the moment. And I'm hopeful that it will evolve into a more streamlined process eventually.
Do you know, it's been an absolutely fascinating session. We had clips to play in, including a David Guetta one, not the Bang Your Head one, I don't think, the other one, which we were going to play, but we haven't got around to those, because it's just been utterly spellbinding, the whole thing. And I also promised we'd open the floor to questions, and I think we're in the last 5 minutes, John, aren't we now? Okay, we've got 5 minutes for questions, and if you'd like to put questions to Alex or to Becky, anybody want to shout one out? We'll put your hand up and I'll point to you. Down here, yeah. Take your time.
Would I be able to send in your music to you and your record label, Alex?
Okay, so Alex, do you listen to other people's music? Do you get music from other people? And can people send it to you?
Of course. Yeah, it would be a pleasure to hear any music that comes through, so please do send it. And I always listen to everything that gets sent across.
Do you? That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Ordinarily, it's very difficult for me to take anything else on. It has been really throughout my career of working with Becky, actually, because it is just non-stop, really. And also I have 2 young kids at home as well. So that work-life balance is poor. But, you know, what I've always been very proud of what Becky has done, and I hope myself as well to a degree, is we know how difficult it is to make it in the record industry. That is why we're here today, in part. And to offer any advice or guidance as much as possible is, I think, is important to give back, actually. Very difficult to navigate this industry.
Sure, we'll find a way to get your music to Alex a little bit later on. Over there, someone with a hand up.
Yes, basically, from your perspective, now that you've got a fan base and stuff like that, and you're saying about all these problems with the record label, is it ever worth, or is it ever a thought process to actually leave the record label behind and try and do the stuff that you want to do, so you've got more control?
Okay, Becky, so I don't know whether you heard the question there, but the question is, and it can go to either of you, is that you're with a record label, they clearly do good stuff, but it feels like you're developing a kind of aura of independence and would like to do things your own way. Would there be a point where you would step away from the label and go it all on your own? Can that be done these days, Alex?
I think just before I answer that directly, it's important to point out that these aren't problems that we have with the record label per se. These are just issues and challenges that arise through a productive working relationship. We have a very, very healthy relationship with Polydor. They do an incredible job, and I always think everybody has their own job within a record label, or any kind of aspect of the people who we work with, and that's their life, and they do it to the best of their abilities, and then they go home and they do it, and I do my job to the best of my ability, and Becky does hers as well. So we really value everyone who works across the entire team. In terms of directly answering that question, yes, it is possible. We've done it before. Becky has her own record label, Echo Records, as she mentioned, and that's actually in partnership with Polydor. So if you look at the data or the metadata or how it is released in terms of the credits, you'll see Echo Records stroke Polydor. But the level that we want to get to and are at and are aspiring to get to further, there are ways of being able to do that. And having the infrastructure of a major record label has allowed us to do that at the pace we're looking to do it. Not every artist is the same, differs per genre. There are success stories of people doing it independently, and then using distribution labels, for example, or partnering with a major record label to distribute as well. So there are lots of different ways of spinning it. Becky is committed in a long-term record deal. They have options until she's about 120. And, eventually we will exit that at some point, or we may carry on with them into the future. But at the moment, they have been an incredibly valuable part of us achieving what we want to achieve. The female pop industry is probably, I would say, the most competitive in the world. Incredibly hard to break, and you're really at the coalface of being able to have the issues and challenges that are associated with that. And to have that big structure behind you, and we haven't at some points, has allowed us to realise the success that we have had. It's not the same for everybody.
Thank you. There's a hand down there I saw as well.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
What would you recommend to an artist trying to look for management?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to turn to Becky for this one, actually. I mean, you described in great detail, very graphically earlier, the process that you went through. But what if you were going through it all again?
One thing I always say to people is to get yourself a portfolio of records. If you're a songwriter, have 3 to 5 records that you've written, your best ones. The next lot of stuff I would have, if you're as a singer-songwriter, so 5 songs that you have recorded yourself, written yourself, and 5 covers that show off your singing to the best of your ability. And then management companies are easy to Google. So you want to find out who Dua Lipa's signed to, who is Dua Lipa's management into Google. If you want to be a type of artist, look for the type of artist that you aspire to, find out who they're managed to, managed by. Have a look on the website, and I'm pretty sure that all like the emails are listed on the website, and just send your shit to everyone that you can. Knock on doors is exactly what I did.
So there are a lot of knockbacks before somebody opens the door, right?
Oh yeah, always. Like
Yeah.
even when you're with a manager, there'll be knockbacks before somebody opens the
Right.
door.
Yeah,
like, you know, you've got to kind of just, you've got to keep going. Like it's kind of there's no option other than to just keep on sending stuff until somebody bites.
Yeah. Okay. There's another hand down here I saw. Go and shout to me and I'll read it. Oh, there we go. We've got the mic.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Hi, Becky. Hi, Alex. It's been a really interesting talk, and thank you so much for giving an insight of the artist-manager relationship in particular. Becky, I have a question for you. So, in terms of like the songwriting opportunities that you have with certain artists, how do you get those in particular? Is it like, do you know, is it, well, how, it's like one of the examples, say, Heaven on My Mind, Sagala, how did you go back with that songwriting session in particular? And then my other question was, you was on Sunday Brunch the other week. Has Fred again got in contact with you since that? Since?
No, Fred won't work with me. I'm not cool enough for him. I've accepted it. Heaven was after Wish You Well. Actually, Bruce is one of the nicest people I've ever worked with in the music industry as an artist. I was kind of put in session with Bruce when he was like having his very, very, very early success. And I'd gone to a writing camp of his and wrote Wish You Well with 3 other strangers that I'd never met before, which ended up being one of his biggest songs, or especially one of my biggest songs. And then I heard Heaven. It was a song that he'd sent me, and me and Emily K rewrote the verses, and I asked Bruce if he would return the favour, because of I suppose where I was at as an artist. I think he's kind of saw that make sense, and he's also just a really lovely guy. I think once you're in the music industry, if you're a good writer and you're talented, it doesn't take long to start getting recognition. I started it was probably after about 2, 3, maybe 4 years. After I suppose like chart success helped, so Afterglow had happened, Overdrive had gone to #1, False Alarm was being put out to Matoma, and that was a top 40 record as well. MK started working with me twice, and MK had started working with me because he'd heard a demo of a song that I'd written when I was 18. So like that's another thing. If you write good music, artists in the music industry, producers in particular, are desperate for good singers and good songs. Everybody's desperate for good songs in this industry. It's like they are golden eggs in music, and everyone's after a hit. I don't care who you are, how cool somebody is. Everybody's after a hit. So once you kind of got your foot in the door, if you're in writing sessions Monday to Friday for 3 years and you're talented and you make good music, I mean, I did Afterglow within the first year, 18 months of working with Alex, and it took that one thing, and then Wilkinson heard it, went to #8 in the charts. 10 years later, it's still being played. 9 years later, it's still being played. So yeah, it doesn't take long once you're in. If you've got determination, you're willing to work with everybody, you're a nice person, and people continue wanting to work with you, you'll get far.
This has been an absolutely incredible session. I've learned so much. It's been amazing, and thank you for being so candid and so informative and so helpful as well, both of you. Really appreciate it. Becky and Alex, thank you very much indeed. A round of applause. Thank you. Amazing. I'll see some of you in half an hour for the management. No, was it the legal one next? I'll see you there. Thank you.